What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another segment of HR Heretics. We are back with our AI Corner with Siadhal from Metaview. What's up, Siadhal?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. All right, so we want to talk about Agentic AI. And before you turn the podcast off, because you've heard this a million times on Twitter and LinkedIn, and you're like, oh my God, like my eyes are glazing over every single time somebody says something about this. What we want to do today is actually break down like, where is this tech today? Where do we think it's going? And what is your job as a people or HR leader thinking about agentic AI in your company? So Siadhal, what the hell is agentic AI?
Yeah. Well, to your point, Nolan, it has been sort of a word or a phrase that's been in the ether for a couple of years now, but really it's come to sort of be the most prominent, like almost theme for 2025 is agentic AI, because a lot of the foundational models have fundamentally improved to a point where agentic workflows are possible, which we'll talk about what they are in a second, but also because they've built specific products around these agentic workflows. So things like ChatGPT, you have Operator, or on Claude, you have browser use, where the AI can go and use your computer as if it's got its fingers on your keyboard and its hand on your mouse. So it's really come to prominence because of that. And so what I thought would be what I think is definitely a really good use of time for folks is to really understand what is the difference between agentic AI and what is the difference between, using AI in your workflow or prompting AI for a certain output. Where can we draw lines between those two worker behaviors, I would say, like things that we're going to be doing in the workplace? Where does one start and one begin? That's why I think it would be interesting. In terms of sort of the fundamental difference between agentic AI and, everything we've been doing up till now, it essentially comes down to that the AI decides for itself, like how many times to try to achieve an outcome. Even the sort of the workflows we had before, where it felt like maybe the products you're using, it felt like there was this autonomy under the hood within this AI product. There often wasn't. Really what it was a very sort of deliberately and surgically engineered chain of prompts that the AI would sort of complete on your behalf. Whereas now what we're seeing are things where there's not this engineered by a human being chain of prompts under the hood. There is literally just a command, maybe an open-ended command or ask that you give the AI, and it figures out for itself how to go and do those things. And when you don't have these sort of under the hood, this chain of prompts, it actually opens up a much bigger surface area of things that the AI can potentially do for you. And of course, therefore, the way you interact with it. So yeah, we'll get into talking about the way you interact with it in a second. But I think just to really dial in on the difference between these AI workflows with these chains of prompts and these agentic AIs where there's no chain of prompts, I want to maybe run through a few examples. So really, as I mentioned, everything up to now has been this either you literally are going to something like ChatGPT and you're giving it one prompt, you're getting one answer, you're thinking about what that means, you're giving it another prompt. Again, you can think of a lot of AI products out there as essentially doing that on your behalf under the hood, where it's ask the AI something, get an output, use that output to inform the next prompt, and so on. And maybe there's 2 or 3 of those in a chain to get you your output. So that could be, check this job description for accuracy. If it's accurate, translate it into Spanish. Once it's successfully translated into Spanish, convert the salary into the euro or the local currency or whatever it might be. And it's some human being has designed that workflow. It's leveraged this intelligence, this artificial intelligence, but it's still essentially a designed workflow. And that's what we think of as an AI workflow. Another example might be, AI, please read an email. The prompt might be, read the email I just received and categorize it as urgent or non-urgent. If it's urgent, then outline potential next steps. And once you have those next steps, ping me on Slack with those next steps. So to us, this felt totally magical. This felt like the AI had sort of figured all these things out. But actually, in reality, there were some smart product people and engineers somewhere who were essentially chaining these individual instances of intelligence together to help us, achieve these really magical things. So really, you needed a set of knowledgeable human beings to design those rails. And the thing that agentic AI does for us is it takes away the need for these intelligent human beings to design these rails and just gives everyone the ability to sort of, ask these quite open-ended, questions that maybe even you don't know how it should go and achieve that thing.
Yeah. So help me understand, like there's dissonance here for me. So I've recently tried the ChatGPT operator. And the reason I tried it, because I felt like I was having an emperor has no clothes moment of like, everybody's using this now. Like, oh my, like you're seeing all of these grandiose statements about how this is like changing the game and holy shit. And like, this is replacing McKinsey analysts, for example. So I'll give you the two prompts that I used. The first one was, we're not only do I host this podcast, you and I are building a podcast with Metaview, and coming up with good questions is hard. It's like one of the hardest things. Yeah. And so I sent operator down a path and I said, hey, I want to know like the best podcast questions to ask this person specifically. And then also just kind of do like a broad base, like what are the best questions to ask if I'm running a, people ops and talent podcast. And it came back with like the most vanilla, obvious shit like you can ever, it just wasn't interesting at all. I'm like, I didn't use any of it, candidly. Yep. So that was thing one. And then thing two is sourcing. So I feel like sourcing, this is like a very obvious use case, right? Which is like, okay, I'm hiring for a, XYZ role. Here's 3 candidates that look great. Like, go get me a list of 100 people that might be a fit. And it's just not close yet. Like it's not even close to what I would expect even a junior sourcer to be able to like go develop and design for me. So I feel like I'm seeing all this stuff on LinkedIn that says this thing is the best thing ever. And oh my God, we're getting rid of junior level roles. And then my personal experience is not that. So is it a me thing, or is the tech just like not there yet and we're overhyping?
I think there's a little bit of a you thing. I'm sort of laughing because I remember sort of like years ago. Now, this is not going to sound like modern technology to many people listening to this, but like, how frustrated do we get when we don't have access to the internet on a plane or something? And you're like, dude, do you know that like 20 years ago or however many years ago, if we told you you'd be up in the air over a sea and you could access any piece of information in the world that's ever been produced and download any movie, and you're now frustrated that you can't do that. So I would say, amazing. Your standards are incredibly high. In sort of 2 years, you've gone from thinking it would be unfathomable that a machine could do any of these things anyway, to being like thoroughly unimpressed with the output. But I sort of agree with you. And I think, interestingly, you're an expert at the 2 things you asked the AI to do. You did not infuse it with as much. The AI does not have as much context about what makes a great podcast as you do. It does not have as much context about what makes a great, sourcing strategy as you do. Now, there will be companies who will be built around those use cases, right? There will be an AI company that focuses on assisting podcasters to run great podcasts. And again, some clever human beings will infuse the AI with the right context to be able to do a better job there. You're using obviously ChatGPT, which is a general purpose tool. It has some spikes, like it's pretty good. Like many engineers will use it for programming, for example, and OpenAI put a ton of resources. And by that, I mean, they literally pay other human beings, experts, gazillions of dollars every year to essentially review code and help the AI learn over time and get better at this thing. They're not doing that for the 2 examples that you just gave. So literally, I think the intelligence of the system has not been reinforced with as much expertise as you have. And so, congratulations, Nolan. In that case, you are smarter than ChatGPT, and you found like the 2, maybe only the 2 things on the planet that you're smarter than ChatGPT at. You found, and
well, have you used it and been like, have you had a wow moment?
I have, not actually with ChatGPT operator, but with I was building sort of silly, fun applications with Replit. I'm not a programmer, but to go from literally idea and human prompt to an application that works, that yes, totally, every engineer at Metaview would be totally embarrassed to put out a product like the one that Replit built for me. But to me, as someone who has no expertise, or I'm not saying no expertise, like minimal expertise and definitely not well-practiced expertise at building software applications, that was a complete superpower. So I think imagine maybe an equivalent. Nolan, if you were running your first podcast to use Spain again, if you were running your first podcast in Spanish with a native Spanish speaker, and you're like, holy shit, I can't even speak Spanish. And you turned to ChatGPT and said, can you produce me a bunch of questions for a Spanish historian that I'm interviewing, and they only know Spanish. To me, the fact you get some questions back, you'd be pretty mind blown by. And the fact you could run a podcast with those questions change things. So I just think there's like a mismatch between, right now, I don't think this will be the case, between someone like you who's an expert in interviewing and recruiting, and expecting ChatGPT to be better out of the gate. Great that you have those expectations. It's not there right now.
Yeah.
But there'll be other cases where it will be.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is like we're still in the, call it bottom of the first inning of this thing.
Yeah.
And, regardless of what I'm reading on Twitter or LinkedIn, it's still very, very early. Like we're making these huge engineering leaps, which is really like what's going on here.
Yeah.
But there's so much room for innovation for purpose-built companies that can take the large language models and build on top of them for a specific use case. That's what I think I'm taking away here.
You're totally. And I mean, frankly speaking, the company I'm building is based on that idea that by having a very much narrower focus, you can actually accelerate into what truly, extraordinarily productive recruiting looks like, because you bound the context so much. But what I would say though is I reckon when you used Operator, it came back with a set of questions, or it came back with a list of candidates, and it probably asked you like, is this what you're looking for? Right.
It didn't ask me that. It came back and said like, here's what I found.
Interesting. Okay.
That was my experience with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So where I was going with that, which, maybe note to the team at OpenAI, the way that I would expect that to work, the way I'm expecting more AI workflows to go is you can either turn up to ChatGPT, something like a ChatGPT, whatever AI, whatever LLM you're using, and you can give it a ton of context about let's use the sourcing example. This is what I think great candidates look like. This is what, these are 100 example resumes that I really like. Go and find me some, and it will do a much better job probably than the thing that you gave. Or you can take the approach you took, which was, hey, find me some candidates for this type of role. It comes back, it gives you 10 examples. It should be asking you like, listen, Nolan, I don't have much information here. Like, are these the type of things you're looking for? And you could literally, with a purpose-built UI, go through and say, yes, this is good. Yes, this is good. No, this is bad. Maybe even you could tell it why they were good or bad, and it would learn and get better. So I do still think the fundamental technology you used with the right user experience wrapped around it would be able to get you to that promised land, because it is, at the end of the day, frankly, far smarter than UI and everyone else listening to this podcast. So I think it could get there. I think that's more of like a UX challenge. So I still think the excitement is very valid. There's just some UX implications we need to work out. And that will, in some cases, that might be done within a generic tool like ChatGPT. And in some cases, that will always be better done within a dedicated, like B2B product, in this case, that other folks build.
Yeah, you're helping me calibrate. I think said more succinctly and directly to me, Nolan, garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, you're only as good as the prompt. So one of the things I actually have been doing that has been working really well, Sal, have you heard of Whisperflow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you use it?
Yeah. As in I'm thinking of the speech to text.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
I use it, yeah.
Do you use it every day?
No, I haven't really developed the habit on it, to be honest. I sort of use it when I remember.
Hey, everyone. We'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelly sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.
Okay, so I've been using this now, I would say like, it's at least 10 times a day. And what I'm finding is that maybe this is unique to me. I don't think it is. I talk so much faster than I type. And I have uninterrupted thoughts when I'm talking. And so what this tool allows me to do is it essentially, I'd say with 97% accuracy, captures what I'm saying in my voice, and it actually like perfectly lists it out in text. And so what I'm finding is like when I'm using ChatGPT now, or even when I'm like communicating with you or other colleagues or whatever it is, I'm immediately like using whisper flow, which then I'm able to just get out like all of the things that are in my brain so much faster. And I don't have the limiting capacity of like, oh my God, I don't want to spend 30 minutes writing this email when I can spend 3 minutes just talking it out. And then, call it a quick minute or two editing, and then it's good to go. And so I think what I'm getting from you is like garbage in, garbage out. So you got to prompt it better, but prompting it better takes more time. And you should be using tools to help you prompt it better, like a whisper flow, which I think everybody should test out because it's fucking sick.
I definitely think I think that's been true for like this whole time, basically. This whole, if you imagine like our world started in November 2023 when ChatGPT launched, or like was highly usable and effective. Like that's always been true, frankly. So I want to stress that the new thing is that, okay, I totally get it. You weren't impressed with Operator, but there is still a massive shift that occurred there where, you asked the AI to source you some candidates. If you had asked ChatGPT to do that even 6 months ago, it wouldn't even had access to like real-time data about what's on the internet. And it would have probably asked you like, well, where do you want me to look for them and things like, whereas actually now, even with this very ambiguous command that you gave, so yes, garbage in a way, it was still able to go to something. And from that something, you can iterate and refine, which is again, very analogous to how humans learn. Like if you hired a recruiter into your company who was sort of like fresh out of high school or something like this, fresh out of college, they'd probably also do a pretty terrible job in their first time. But you didn't need to literally tell them like how to move the mouse on the screen and do this, and they at least did something with some autonomy. So I do still think it's really important. And I guess the one thing I'd also say is one of the big shifts with agentic AI is, because often you ask it to do something, one of the downsides to using agentic AI often is that often it takes a little bit longer to return you an answer. It can actually it can be quite meandering in how it goes and exploring these things, which again is quite human as well. Sometimes it goes down dead ends, sometimes it goes down rabbit holes. It's like very almost like comically human in how it goes about completing these tasks. But the really cool thing is you can see exactly the thinking. It's actually not exactly, funny enough, they productize the thinking, but you can, in conceptually, you can see the thinking of the AI of how it got to this thing. And you can also correct it on the thinking. So again, this is not, I don't think what we're saying is there's some panacea of now you just need to like very blasely and sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of, with hardly any detail, say, hey, do this and it's going to do a great job. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, like, if you lean in, and I think this is where now I'm getting you now. Well, I guess what you're saying in terms of garbage in, that's true, but I don't think it's not just at the top of the funnel. Like you can always correct.
Exactly.
This is a collaboration, and you can change tact halfway through and say, you know what, I'm realizing you're not getting it. Listen, you've gone wrong here. You don't want to be looking over here. Do this instead. You can still engage with it in that way. It's not forcing you to give it those guardrails because it has agency. It has the ability to, at least do something based on what you've asked it to do.
Yeah, the analog would be if I hired a junior sourcer and they produced what OpenAI produced, I would just be like, this sucks. And then I'd no longer interact with that person, right? Which is not what I would be doing, right? What I would be doing is being like, no, we're not close here. I expect these things. So now take this and do these 3 things on top of it and take another turn. That's actually very helpful for me and probably helpful for our audience, because one of the things that's happening right now is we're having to, you said UX earlier, right? I actually think what's happening right now is like we're teaching the human how to operate the machine.
Mhm.
And that's been my issue, is like, I don't think I'm very good at operating the machine yet.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, my expectations are so high because of what I see on Twitter and LinkedIn that I'm like, it should just fucking work.
Yeah.
And that's just not where we are. We need to actually like recode our brains and have lower expectations as we would with the junior employee, but a junior employee that can get a lot better very quickly.
Yeah. I think it's very connected to, it's funny, like, I think there's another way to say what you said is actually, frankly, the opposite of what you said. So you said, I'm not really like very good at operating these machines. It's almost like the machines are now operating less like a machine and more like a human. So that's like, really, you've been trained, and so have I, in my whole professional life, to operate machines in a way that suits machines, which is, it's totally deterministic. If I do this thing will output instantaneously. That is obviously not, that's only true in computer land. Like, that's not actually how the rest of the world is. And now we're dealing with this technology that not only can I sort of input whatever type of query prompt or, garbage that I want, but even if I ask that same question the next day, I will get a slightly different outcome as well. So it's probabilistic instead of deterministic. And so that's something we all have to learn to sort of get our head around. Again, it's another reason why you'll get dedicated, frankly, like AI providers for certain use cases, because they will try and take out as much of that randomness for certain workflows as possible. Whereas ChatGPT is not going to do that because it's a general purpose tool. But again, it's still fundamentally, we need to build up that intuition that this is like a much more organic, live relationship that we're having with technology that's much more akin to working with a human. And I'll probably people might get sick of hearing me say it, and I'll probably get sick of saying it. I do honestly think the simplest analogy to remind yourself of is, this is very similar to how human beings both learn and how human beings operate. And so it's much more similar to that.
That's actually, it's a really helpful frame, right? It's just like, treat it like a junior employee. I guess you could be meaner to it if you would like to.
You probably have to say please and thank you so much, but I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe the AI overlords will be taking this into account at some point. So be careful.
Yeah. Well, Sal, this is super helpful for us. Last question for you is like, what is in your daily AI stack?
Oof, good question. So ChatGPT is my like go-to general purpose chat product. I'm pretty big on like harnessing all the conversational data I use, and I obviously use my own product for that. And we use that both for our recruiting, but also for our other meetings as well. I've started to play much more with, as I mentioned, I've been like almost like also I have to spend time honing my intuition too. So I've been spiking a lot recently on playing with Replit, which is a great tool. You should check it out, just to help you go from like just a few words to like coaching you through literally deploying software. Not even coaching you through, frankly, in many ways, just doing it for you. So that's, I wouldn't quite call it daily at this point, but that's pretty frequent. Notion AI is really good, to be honest with you. From like some folks will be using like dedicated AI for knowledge, almost like knowledge management. We don't do that. I use Notion really because most of our internal company knowledge is in Notion. And so I use Notion AI a lot as well.
Okay. The only other thing I'd add to what you just said is Whisperflow. Like, I really do believe this has been a magical experience for me. I am finding that like I am much more of an orator communicator. Yeah. And I feel like most actually like people and talent folks probably are like me. And so they should like 100% check this out. And then our commitment is like, let's learn together as a community. So like in the comment section, what are you guys using every day? Like, and are you having actually like magic moments with these products? Please share those in the comments so we can all continue to learn.
Yeah. That's a great shout. One thing I would say on Whisperflow though is, sorry to sort of derail at the last minute there, but is I imagine it's better suited to people that work from home a lot. Just from like I spent all day in the office today with my team. There still is a little bit of weirdness around, hey, someone just piped up and turns out they weren't talking to me, they were talking to their computer. It's okay. So
I got over that. Okay, so like I disagree with you, and God, I'm forgetting who. Maybe it was George Mack, who's an amazing follow on Twitter, who was talking about this. But he was saying he would walk around Austin, literally just like talking to ChatGPT. This is like the voice version of ChatGPT, and this is how he brainstorms and comes up with the articles. And he said, I know I look crazy and I don't give a shit because it works so well. So I agree with you. There is like that little bit of like a weirdness thing, But especially if you're like in recruiting, like you're typically on the phone every day anyway. So, who knows who the hell you're talking to.
Yeah. True.
So, all right, everybody, let us know what you think in the comments. And again, please add in what tools you're using so we can all continue to learn. HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.